corruption that would take place because of the transgression of Ish and Isha in the garden. What does that mean? That means that once they were thrown out of the garden, they would teach them, but corruption, because of everything that they learned, all of the sudden would creep into what they were teaching. Okay? And there's some other factors that we won't talk about, but particularly this, what we'll see in just a second, that only the descendants of Adam, both Ish and Isha, that were in the garden would survive the flood. Where did Noah come from? He came from the generation of Seth, who was a child of Adam and Chava at that point. Okay? So only the generations from Adam would survive the flood. This humankind that had been created outside the garden would perish because of transgression. Why? This is why Elohim will never destroy humankind again. The descendants of the Adam contained the Ruach of Elohim, where the humankind outside did not. This also opens our eyes to another idea to consider concerning the sons of Elohim and the daughters of men, or humankind. We have a lot of things that are taught about that. We have this idea that it was angels that came down and had carnal relationships with human women, and this is actually supported by the book of Enoch, that if we read that, but angels are not human, and they are not made, if we read in Torah, they're not created to copulate. They're not created to be fruitful and multiply. So this is not a possibility.
Are they basically whatever?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're not male, they're not female. So it's irrelevant. What we have here is that the sons of Elohim, we read the genealogy in Luke, it takes the genealogy, I think it's Luke, it takes the genealogy of Yahshua all the way back to Adam, and it says that Adam was the son of Elohim. That it was these children from the descendants of Adam that got involved with the carnally minded only human race. And this is what caused the problems. We can also say that they got involved with the generations of Cain, who had been instructed by the messengers of Elohim. We say these fallen angels who came to earth that taught them industry, that taught them agriculture, that taught them music and the arts, and that this is what perverted the thing. Whatever the case is, transgression slipped in because the two races intermingled and they weren't supposed to. So in the following verse, we see the relevance of Bereshit 2:7, that humankind is both physical and a spiritual being. This is the humankind that comes from Adam. And it says, therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. That we are Ish and Isha, we are one flesh. That we have the ability to communicate with Elohim through our prayer, through our study, through our praise, and that is the spirit that comes forth from this. So we have to continue in our story in Eden to see the transgression now take place. And it says, now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which Yahweh Elohim had made. And he said unto the woman, yes, has Elohim said, you shall not eat of any tree of the garden. This is what the Satan is saying. As Elohim said, you shall not eat of any tree of the garden. And the woman said to the serpent, of the fruit of the trees of the garden we may eat. What did Elohim say? Of all of the trees of the garden you may freely eat. But of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, what tree is in the midst of the garden that we just discussed? But of the fruit of the tree that is in the midst of the garden, Elohim has said, you shall not eat of it, neither shall you touch it, lest you die. got the wrong tree, and Elohim didn't say anything about touching. Okay? And the serpent said unto the woman, you shall not surely die. This takes us, what we've just read takes us to Devarim 13:1 in Torah, 12:32 in King Jimmy. It says, all the words that I've commanded you today, you shall keep them. Don't add to it, don't take away from it. She did both in this. And if we add to the word of Elohim and we take away from the word of Elohim, we basically pervert the word of Elohim to say something that it does not say. It didn't say anything about not eating from the tree in the midst of the garden. For Elohim does know that the day that you eat of it, then your eyes shall be opened, and you shall be as Elohim, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eye, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit of it, and she did eat, and she gave also to her husband with her, and he did eat. What does that tell us? That if our praise, our worship, prayer life, our study life is lacking, then the spirit is easily deceived by the Satan. And it was right there, right next to her. But yet, if our prayer life, if our study life isn't what it should be, then our spirit is going to suffer in deception. Okay? It says, and the eyes of them both were opened, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together, and they made themselves girdles. So to keep things simple, we'll say that this was transgression. This was the result of our spiritual side not being supported by our worship side. We easily yield to the temptation and to deception. This in turn leads to false worship. They sewed fig leaves together and made themselves girdles. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. This, however, was only transgression. Teshuvah could have been made, and there would not have been a need for the girdles of fig leaves. Fig leaves in Judaism represents prosperity. They represent wealth. In this case, we say a dependence on self-worship that covers up the truth. Whenever we see a fig leaf, it also represents the fact that something is being covered up, that we need to look underneath. So the fig leaves, they made fig leaves instead of making teshuvah, that they depended on their own wealth and prosperity and covered up the truth of Elohim. This transgression becomes sin in these following verses, and this is Bereshit 3:8-13. And they heard the voice of Yahweh Elohim walking in the garden towards the breeze of the day. This was his habit. They knew he was coming. And the man and the wife hid themselves from the presence of Yahweh Elohim amongst the trees of the garden. Hid is the first time that we see the letter het, that means wall, that means to hide. That is the Hebrew word for sin. It's the first time that we see the het as the root of a word in Torah, is in this word for hide, chabed. And Yahweh Elohim called unto the man and said unto him, where are you? And we've toyed with this question a lot. He wasn't asking, are you behind a rock? Are you behind a tree? What he's asking is, what have you done? What is your spiritual condition? And at this point he's asking, what are you going to do about it? This point is the precipice. Humankind has a decision to make. And Adam says, I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, and I hid myself. And Elohim says, who told you you were naked? Have you eaten of the tree of which I commanded that you should not eat? Here was the opportunity to make teshuvah. A confession of the transgression would have been forgiven without the need for blood. It was, however, an attempt at passing the blame on instead of confession of transgression that takes place. No confession takes place. No teshuvah takes place. Passing blame takes place. And the man said, "The woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I did eat." Yahweh Elohim said unto the woman, "What is this that you've done?" And the woman said, "The serpent beguiled me, and I did eat." Yes, they confessed it. But they didn't make teshuvah. They didn't say, "Forgive us. We've transgressed your commandments. Forgive us. Help us not to do it again." No animals had been killed at this point. There was no need for blood for the forgiveness of sin. Elohim could have said simply, "Okay, you made a big mistake, but we're going to have to figure this out, and we'll work on it." When our worship is false before Yahweh Elohim, so will our spirit be false. This type of worship cannot be in the presence of Yahweh Elohim, as he is seeking those who will worship in spirit and in truth. This is a very important thing, because it was Yahshua who told the woman at the well that the Father is seeking those who will worship in spirit and in truth. First thing, but he also said that the door is narrow and very few are those who find it. He said, "I will shed my blood for many." There's a lot of things that go into our relationship with our Elohim. Are we worshiping in spirit and in truth? Are we seeking Elohim to live, is what Amos tells us. A lot of things go into our relationship with Elohim and building that relationship. But when our worship is false before Yahweh Elohim, so will our spirit be. Bereshit 3:21 through 24 says, "And Yahweh Elohim made for Adam and for his wife garments of skin and clothed them." Where did these garments of skin come from? He didn't create garments of skin. 2 animals had to die. Like we said before, if we read the first book of Adam and Eve, Adam is distraught because he finds 2 dead animals that had been skinned by the lakeshore. Okay? And Yahweh Elohim said, "Behold, the man is become as one of us, to know good and evil. And now lest he put forth his hand, and take also from the tree of life, and eat, and live forever." Therefore Yahweh Elohim sent him forth from the Garden of Eden to till the ground from whence he was taken. So he drove out the man, the Adam, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden the cherubim and the flaming sword, which turns every way to keep the way to the tree of life, to protect the way from the tree of life, to guard the way to the tree of life. Okay? Who was Elohim consulting with when he said this? He was speaking to somebody. If what we read in John is held to be true, then we know that it was the word that Elohim was looking to, and that it was according to the word of Yahweh Elohim that the true verdict and sentence was reached. Sin had taken place. The blood of animals was shed to atone for it. The Adam that was to instruct humankind concerning the things of Elohim had perverted his instruction, and as a result, the existing humankind on the earth would come to destruction. The world was now formless and void, and darkness was on the deep of the deep, and the Ruach of Elohim grieved over the condition of humankind. The word that's used for hovered is actually a word that means grieved. The Spirit of Elohim, the Ruach of Elohim, grieved over the condition of humankind. But a way was had already been produced in the beginning, and it was already set in motion for forgiveness and restoration of humankind to take place in this helix of Torah time. Bereshit 1:3-4 says, "And Elohim said, Let there be light, and there was light. And Elohim saw the light that it was good. And Elohim divided the light from the darkness. The light came forth as a means of separating the darkness from the light. A way to restore the realm of Elohim to the realm of humankind. A way to restore the realm of Elohim to the realm of humankind. Hashamayim va'et haaretz. Okay? That Hashamayim, the heavens, the realm of Elohim, would be attached to haaretz, the earth, the realm of humankind. Okay? Now, we read in John 1:4-5 that says, "In him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it." It's talking about Yahshua. It's talking about the Word that came. So now we go back to Bereshit 1:1. We understand why a means of restoration, redemption, and deliverance from sin was necessary. So let's continue our examination of this verse. We have established that the Word would have authority to become the vehicle of sacrifice, and as such, restore that broken covenant between Yahweh Elohim and Adam, humankind at this point. How would this be accomplished? So now we're going to consider the word, the second word of Bereshit 1:1, which is bara, which means created. John 1:2-3 tells us, "He was in the beginning with Elohim. All things came into being through him, and apart from him nothing came into being that has come into being." Through the Word things were created, and without the Word nothing was created, is what John is saying. Okay? So now, in the Hebrew letters themselves of bara, we look at bara. We have a whole bunch of Bereshis up here. We look at bara, and what is bara going to tell us? We look at bara. Right now we see resh, we say means authority. The first time that we see the aleph as the root of a word in Torah is in the third word in Bereshit 1:1 in the word Elohim. So the aleph is a representation of Elohim. A lot of people haven't taken the Hebrew letters, but said that all the Hebrew letters are constructed of other Hebrew letters. We have an upside down yod, a right side up yod, and a vav that make up the aleph. The numerical value of yod is 10. The numerical value of vav is 6. We have two yods for 20, plus 6 is 26, which is the same gematria, or the same numerical value as the name of Yahweh. So the aleph represents Yahweh Elohim. So here we have the authority of Yahweh Elohim. Then we have the beit, which represents what? It means house, temple, tabernacle, right? So we say that if we take another look at this, though, bara, if we cut it in half, we have the word bar, which is the Aramaic word for son, and then we still have the aleph, which represents Elohim. So we have the authority of Yahweh Elohim would be in a tabernacle as the son of Yahweh Elohim. So the authority of Yahweh Elohim would come as a temple and would be the son of Yahweh Elohim. We see this in the second word in Bereshit 1:1. And then John 1:14 says, "And the Word became human and made his tabernacle among us, and we saw his glory, glory as the one and only, or the one begotten from the Father, full of grace and truth." So what are we seeing so far? That Elohim has prepared for this transgression and has prepared in order to restore us here today back to a relationship with him if we will believe and receive. We see that it is a helix taking place. The transgression took place, and a means for restoration has also been put into place. So this restoration